Welcome back. It's that time of the week. It's time for another episode of The Secret Diaries of a Gay Gynecologist in Paris, a memoir. Yes, you heard right, a memoir by Rafael Herrero, MD, PhD. The Secret Diaries of a Gay Gynecologist in Paris. Caution, may contain adult language. Chapter 4. That's what friends are for. Paris, 3 days later. Saturday morning, and although it was almost noon, we were still sound asleep. André and I were lost in oblivion under a wooden mezzanine, installed in the middle of his tiny apartment, on an open pliable sofa large enough for 2 dwarves. The sun pierced the blinds into the dark room and drew horizontal lines across our lazy, naked bodies. We could have been posing for Vogue. I stretched myself awake. Heels came up the stairwell. They stopped on the landing, and somebody knocked at the door. "Ouais," groaned André from the bed. "Who is it?" "Bonjour, André. C'est moi, Kerstin," said a female voice from behind the door. André jumped from the bed as if he had heard the voice of the devil himself and scrambled to find some pants and a t-shirt. He threw them on in a panic. "Just a second. I'm in the bathroom," he hollered, as if in such a small apartment shouting were necessary. "Rafael, get dressed, vite!" He finally opened the door, and an angel stepped into the apartment. Kirsten, André explained, his upstairs neighbor, a German girl from Berlin. She was finishing her studies in hotellerie and working part-time at l'Hôtel Concorde on Place Saint-Lazare. I pulled up the blinds and the morning sun lit up the room. Her blonde hair caught the rays of the sun, and her fluffy, incandescent halo became the center of our universe. A round face of porcelain-white skin, not a blemish to distract from her sea-blue eyes. Her small yet curvy red lips parted to greet me with a smile. "Du must be Rafael, André's friend from Spain," she said with a cute German accent. "Oui, absolument. Je suis son ami espagnol," I answered with glee, aware that the French don't really have different words for friend or boyfriend, or girlfriend for that matter. I knew that if I wanted to make it clear that I was talking about my boyfriend, I had to add the possessive to friend, ami, and say my friend, mon ami. If I wanted to make it very clear that we were in a steady relationship and that we were having sex, I had to say my little friend, mon petit ami. Why was it that such a precise language was so vague when it came to distinguishing people you were friendly with from those you were having sex with? I got up and kissed Kirsten on the cheeks. She looked at me with her curious, alert eyes and smiled. For tourists and newly arrived foreigners, everything is a gem, refreshingly new, perceived in a positive light. I was still in that phase, and apparently so was Kirsten. She plunked a paper bag on the kitchen bar. "I brought you some croissants for breakfast," she said, taking a seat on a tall, straw-woven stool. André scurried around, grabbing cups from the sink and setting them out. "Mais c'est adorable, Kerstin." She crossed her legs, accentuating the roundness of her hips. "Did I arrive a bit too early?" "Not at all," André said. "An espresso, everyone?" Before we could answer, the phone rang. It was Ronan. He was walking to André's with produce he had just bought at the Saturday morning open market. "A little lettuce and some chèvre chaud," said his warbly voice on the phone's loudspeaker. "I'm walking up the steps from the metro right now." Sure enough, I opened the French windows and saw Ronan's head of curly black hair bobbing up the steep stone steps leading up from La Place des Abbesses to Rue des Trois Frères. He reached the top of the stairs with 2 overflowing plastic bags in one hand and a cell phone in the other. He saw me leaning out of the window and a smile flashed over his face. He set the bags down on the sidewalk and waved a big hello, as if he were waving to an airplane in the sky. "Salut, Rafael!" he shouted. All I could see was his frisbee-sized mouth. I watched him take long, happy strides towards our building. He was obviously overjoyed to be out and about, escaping the strict Sabbath protocol his family imposed on him. Ronan loved to talk. He'd once explained to me that after sunset on Friday night, he wasn't allowed to use any light switches, or even any regular pens. Of course, his parents had had a full-blown spasm attack when they found out that he was gay. This kind, non-threatening, frail creature was the abject rebel in the family. This Saturday, the odious insurgent had been able to flee the house. His parents had taken his 6 male siblings to the seaside, to Deauville, like every weekend. Ronan had been punished to stay behind in Paris with his sister, who had exams coming up at La Sorbonne. Rebecca begrudgingly decided to turn a blind eye to her brother's loneliness this Saturday morning. She would keep his mean secret, but only till their parents returned on Monday. "We'll turn it into brunch for everyone," Ronan squealed as he pranced through the doorway into her apartment. "Croissant, salade, et chèvre chaud, and a café and orange juice," said Kirsten. As I weaved through them on my way towards the shower, André phoned Yvonne to see if she wanted to join us. 5 people in a 20-square-meter apartment was a crowd. But Yvonne, the suave Frenchwoman who had once been André's childhood playmate, being the night owl that she was probably still in bed. She'd bring wine, she said to André on the phone. She preferred wine to orange juice. We sipped Yvonne's wine in the early afternoon, sitting quite uncomfortably around a low table on leather poufs. The TV played in the corner. It had all been scrumptious. A silence gathered around us, and we listened to the protagonists of a black-and-white French movie whispering to each other. "Je t'aime, Claire, je t'aime, Claire," said Baptiste, holding his girlfriend in his arms. "Oh, Baptiste," the girl said with tears in her eyes. Mais pourquoi tu l'as fait?" "I know you saw me kissing Marie," he continued, as violins played in the background. "Je sais. Mais tu ne comprends pas. You just don't understand. She doesn't mean anything to me." "Vraiment?" she asked, drawing nearer. "Mais oui, Claire." "Oh, Baptiste," she moaned once, and they swooned into a kiss, while an arriving locomotive spewed clouds of smoke onto the platforms. "Ah, the kiss of death," said Yvonne dreamily, as she leaned into the television screen, a wine glass in one hand and a Marlboro Lights in the other. "The pauvre girl," said Kirsten. Ronan looked on, bewildered, while André watched the screen with indifference. Yvonne turned to Kirsten. "Mais no. She's being childish and immature." Kirsten's pretty pink mouth opened and said, "But she's in love." "So is he," Yvonne said. The Berliner clutched her knees. She spoke distinctly, with Marlene Dietrich enunciation. "But he should be true to her. It is only natürlich for her to feel hurt by what he has done to her. La fidélité est importante, nicht wahr?" I looked over at André. "Non, mais pas du tout," Yvonne said. "At all?" Kirsten asked. "Well," Yvonne said, throwing back a strand of red hair. "Well, yes, in fact. Je suis fidèle à moi-même." "True to yourself?" I asked, eyes still on André. "What exactly does that mean?" "I might love my partner," Yvonne said, "but if I want to have sex with another guy, well, why shouldn't I? As long as I know who I love and who I don't, that's what's important." "L'important c'est d'aimer," Ronan threw in playfully to break the tension, and Yvonne smiled. "Mais je m'accepte." Kirsten pulled back, hands still on her knees. So, she should not worry that he has kissed another woman? Of course not, Yvonne said. He's told her that he loves her, hasn't he? I was amazed that things were so clear for Yvonne. I really had so much to learn from this country. Still, I would have liked André to speak up and disagree. Yvonne took another drag from her cigarette and flipped her red bangs to the opposite side. You see, one thing is sex, and another thing is love. You can use the kiss for both, but you shouldn't confuse the two. Kirsten said, Should not there be just one person in your life? André stared blankly at the arguing women and took another drag from his Gauloise. Yvonne smiled at Kirsten. Yvonne was too debonair to react with the usual disgust that the French display for naivete. She took a sip of Bordeaux. You know, I said, butting in, this makes me think of Gina Lollobrigida. Remember the Italian actress? More than her movies, I remembered her licentious beauty and her big boobs. I was watching TV once in Spain, and she was on a talk show. The interviewer asked her, Gina, everybody know that you have had a lot of men in your life. I've been told that you once said that you loved most of them. Is it possible to really love so many men? Gina replied, Oh, si, cara signora. You see, I've always thought that if in the human heart there were only enough space for one person, the human heart would indeed be a very small and a poor place, don't you think? Kirsten looked rattled. Yvonne nodded. Ronan took in the conversation with a large open mouth, while André admired the locomotive pulling out of the train station on the TV screen. Yvonne stood up from her stool and crossed her arms. That's why I believe in the type of relationship that Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir had. A non-exclusive relationship, not based on monogamy, each one living in his own separate home. I'd heard the speech before. It seemed pretty unromantic to me, but the French proclaimed it worked.
Eh bien voilà, mes amis, c'est tout pour aujourd'hui. That's it for today, my friends. Join me for our next show of The Secret Diaries of a Gay Gynecologist in Paris, a memoir by Rafael Herrero, MD, PhD. Contact me at Rafael Herrero, RafaelHerrero.SF, like in San Francisco, at gmail.com. Au revoir, à la semaine prochaine, et vive Paris!
If you liked today's episode, would you please like my Facebook page? Search for A Gay Gynecologist in Paris. Please give me a hand and follow me as well on Twitter at Gay Gyno Paris with no spaces between the words, and share with me all your thoughts. Thank you, and see you next week. Salut mes amis, ici le gynécologue gay de Paris, The Gay Gynecologist in Paris. Suivez-moi sur Facebook. Vous pouvez me trouver sous Gay Gynecologist Paris. Faites-moi un like, s'il vous plaît. Vous pouvez me suivre aussi sur Twitter, at Gay Gyno Paris. Ça s'appelle JAYGYNO, Paris comme la ville Paris. Répandions le bonheur et soyons tous amis sur Facebook and Twitter. Au revoir, beaucoup de bisous et à bientôt.